Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Prior to us logging in here right now, we were in another Zoom meeting for closed session. A couple of the things that we discussed in closed session are not noted on our agenda, so I'm going to turn it over to Mark Toscano to give us the update on what we discussed.
Thank you. In addition to the items noted on the agenda that was published prior to the meeting, the board also discussed in item number 1, staff and student health matters and issues, as well as for box number 7, the docket number 20, CIV 5878.
Thank you, Mr. Toscano. As you can see, tonight is a school board spirit night. My board colleagues and I are very, very happy and proud to be wearing our WWP Strong shirts and sweatshirts to this meeting tonight. We are WWP Strong, and I think that we have that spirit and of resilience because of this incredible community. Every single day, I see and hear about the incredible work that's being done by our students and our teachers and our staff and their families, whether it's hybrid or virtual, working together to take care of each other. So as we begin our meeting tonight, I just want to extend some heartfelt thanks to the 10 district PTAs, the Special Education PTSA, the African American Parent Support Group, and the West Windsor-Plainsboro Education Association for collaborating to create and sell the spirit wear that we have on tonight, and for organizing the district-wide Spirit Day that we had yesterday. We are most definitely stronger together. So with that, I will turn it over to the superintendent for his comments tonight.
Thank you, Michelle, and good evening, everyone. So it's day 49 in district. Again, a tremendous thanks and gratitude and appreciation to our staff and our staff, our support staff, our teachers, for all the work that they're doing to shepherd us through the first quarter. Thanks to our students and families for the dedication and their resilience in moving to both virtual and hybrid learning environments. And so I just wanted to just start with a little bit of a framing on where we are as of today. On Friday, I sent out a health and safety update. The health and safety update indicated some challenges that we've been seeing and some challenges in our numbers. We have had several positive cases of recent, but since that letter went out on Friday late afternoon, we have had to quarantine an additional 29 staff members. So there are several direct impacts to our buildings that have occurred in terms of outside incidents that were then brought forward impacts to our school community and our ability to operate in some of our buildings. To date, we have not had to shut a school down since back in September when community went for 3 days, but we do have a classroom that we had to take offline today at one of our elementary schools due to multiple close contact exposure based on some factors within the classroom setting. But when we look at the totality of where we are, we have had 437 students quarantined or isolated since September 8th. And we've had 182 staff members quarantined or isolated since September 8th. So just, on the aggregate, staggering numbers. But we've been able to find ways as a school community, but we are hedging towards a critical moment. And so we want to just be really upfront with our school community that it is getting harder and harder to keep staff operational or schools operational as we've had more classes, in-person classes to cover. As you can imagine, there's not a large number of substitutes. We have had approximately 25 to 30 substitutes potted in certain buildings across the school district. That is a far cry from our normal daily numbers that we would traditionally have available in a bank. But we have some very kind souls that have committed to working with us, but they are being put in place of teachers that are moved to quarantine. And even if a teacher is in quarantine or isolation and are attempting to teach virtually while their students are in person, especially at the elementary K-5, pre-K-5 level, you need a teacher in the classroom. You need a certified staff member in the classroom with students. So we have had principals teach classes. We have assistant principals and guidance counselors have had to teach classes. We're slowly running out of manpower is guess my larger point. So we are going to do our best to keep the doors open for now, but we do want to make it very clear to our school community that the potential of a pivot is in front of us. And for how long is undetermined, but when we're looking at the scores that will come out on Thursday from the statewide health department will be telling to start seeing how the state is moving what's called the Cali score. It's the 6 regional scores that the state is assigning from the Department of Health to regions. We are in 2 regions, as I noted in my last letter, both Central West and Central East. We've worked with the Department of Health because we're one of the few districts that crosses 2 different zones, if not the only one. And in that discussion with the state, we determined we would always follow the highest level of care. So if Central East moves to orange, but Central West stays yellow, we would follow orange or the higher level for both communities. Remember, our students cross boundaries, and sometimes our staff crosses boundaries, not so much with COVID, but our students still cross from Plainsboro to West Windsor schools and West Windsor to Plainsboro schools. So we have to be very mindful of cross-contamination within our school community. So again, my utmost thanks and respect and appreciation to our staff and to our administrators for all the work that they've done. The amount of schedule changes and accommodations that they have made is unprecedented, but they've done it in support of our families. I would just tell our families the other challenge we are having right now is, as so many have moved towards virtual, we are starting to run out of virtual seats. Now, you say, how do you run out of virtual seat? We don't theoretically run out of virtual seat, but once you go across 32 in a Zoom, you flip to the next page where you can't see the students anymore. It's very hard to manage a bunch of 8-year-olds on a Zoom when you can't fit them all on one screen. And even thinking in terms of 28, 30 third graders on one meeting, our class ratios are starting to fall out of balance as we've made so many schedule changes. So our teachers, again, are doing remarkable work. Our administrators, our counselors, whatnot, our child study team, but we are cresting towards a breaking point. And we are going to have to just continually to monitor. We will continue to stay in touch. We sent out an extra health update today because, again, we had 25 quarantines including 6 positives just today. 5 positives, excuse me. And all 5 were students. No, it was 6. It was 6. It was 2 in one family. So it was 6 positives, and all 6 were student-based positives based on outside of school transmission, based on family-based gatherings, based on weekend events, based on community gatherings. And unfortunately, it's impacting the school because from that, 12 staff members were then impacted and had to be put into quarantine. So again, I just ask everyone to please exercise. COVID fatigue cannot be, we have to fight against COVID fatigue. We have to make sure that we're keeping one another safe. It has direct impact on our families. It has direct impact. It could have direct impact on your own family. So we need to make sure that we're taking every effort to make sure that we're protecting our school community, but the family in which we live with could be impacted by the actions that we take. And so I just ask everyone to please, as we're stepping into a very challenging time period where most epidemiologists and state public health workers are saying is going to be one of the most difficult time periods coming up, that we take and exercise every caution possible. So with that, I'll turn it back to our board president for our student representatives.
Thank you. So we are delighted to have our student reps here tonight. Last time I had High School North go first, so today we'll start with High School South.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Zakir Subramanian. I'm a senior and I'm the BOE representative for High School South. And let's start out with current events. So in current events, this is our 2nd week of homecoming at South. All of our Spirit Weeks Spirit Week days are movie themed this year. And in continuation of our 40+ year tradition, the seniors are dominating the Spirit Week competition. As far as student council updates, we've been having a number of virtual events recently. Our first trivia night around Halloween was a rousing success with over 150 students turning up to compete. We've also had 2 virtual town halls where we've interacted with the student bodies and explained things ranging from the differences between class and student council to how clubs and student organizations will function this year to our tentative plans for winter sports, Washington seminar, and prom. After discussing with many teachers, we're also launching a campaign to encourage students to keep their cameras on. As one thing a lot of teachers have told us is that they find it difficult to teach a screen full of black rectangles. Stay tuned for our advertising materials and our videos coming up soon with that campaign. We also ran a state of the ship address where, just like I report on High School South at board meetings, the 4 class councils and student council provide reports directly to the student body at South. That video is available on the High School South YouTube account and requires a district email to view. Now that the school year is fully underway, I thought that I would run some polls on social media about how students feel their learning experience is being impacted by virtual learning, and because ultimately I speak for the students. And here are the results. The first key finding is that most students empathize with the experimentation process that teachers and administrators have gone through this marking period. Everyone I've spoken with has made it abundantly clear that they understand all the difficulties that teachers face. And I want to take this time to thank all of my teachers for the changes they've made to their schedules and the remarkable work they've done in a radically different environment than normal. With that said, one key desire of the student body is more transparency while that experimentation process goes on. Our generation has grown up in a technological world and we're prepared for it, but many students feel that the variability in the mode by which tests are taken and assignments are turned in necessitates more transparency. For example, as teachers switch between having tests on Google Forms, Google Classroom assignments, and tests on other websites and services, students struggle to adapt quickly without prior notice and their work suffers. An open dialogue with more teachers needs to be had so that students feel comfortable that their work hasn't been hindered by a lack of familiarity with the testing software. Beyond that, many teachers have so much to do digitally now and so many changes in the schedule on their plate that the process of grading itself suffers. A key mental health concern that many students have brought to me is that very few grades are being inputted throughout the marking period, with a flurry of inputs coming after they have the chance to affect their grades at all. This makes many students quite anxious towards the end of the marking period and has an even worse effect on seniors worried about sending those scores to colleges. We all understand the challenges teachers face, but an open discussion about when assignments will be graded to mitigate stress should be encouraged. This is ultimately a less urgent issue than managing public health concerns with more lockdowns and pivots looming, but is something that we have to address if this is going to be the new normal, which it is. I know that we can't wave our hands and fix this. A general guideline for more transparency from teachers can be issued so that work and mental health of students is not impaired. And making people with the power to do something aware of the issues students face is the first step to solving this problem. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much. So now we'll hear from our representatives from High School North.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to just say it's great to see you all again. My name is Allison Wu. I'm a representative for North. I'm a junior. And I'm really excited to share with you North's homecoming plan. So just like South, it is our second week of the Spirit Week as well. And that means that we've been having our Spirit Weeks where we have people dress up, as well as we're doing a new activity on Wednesdays where we have the students change their Zoom background to a certain theme that we choose. And just as Saket said, we've also noticed that some teachers have been having issues with students not participating and not liking to turn on their cameras. And so we're hoping that this kind of encourages students to be more active in class because they have to have their cameras on in order to have the Zoom background. Additionally, during our Spirit Weeks, we're having music playing in between classes, and we're hoping that kind of helps with the morale of being back at school, as well as promoting our new homecoming participants. So we're having more inclusivity, as I mentioned last time. And so for the first round of voting, instead of having the 5 that we usually have, we're having 15 participants. And during the second round of voting, we're narrowing that down to just 5. And those 5 will be our winners. And we're redubbing that Knights of the Round Table. And during these 2 processes, we're no longer having gender be one of the factors into consideration when students are voting. Yeah, so that's something that we're doing, as well as the second event that I want to talk about, which is something that our theater program put on during this Halloween. They did a reboot of the Orson Welles radio broadcast that was originally done in 1938 on Halloween Eve, where basically it was really fun. They convinced the citizens of Plainsboro that there was an alien invasion going on. And so it's something that's very timely because it happened on the anniversary of this broadcast, as well as it's really special to our area because, you know, we're here in Plainsboro and it's something that happened to us. And I thought that was really interesting, and it was a cool alternative to usually what they have is they have like a fall drama. And so kind of course, since that isn't going to be feasible this year, I thought this was a really interesting and cool alternative to that. And that's what I want to talk about. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Eddie. He's going to talk more about current events and what clubs are doing.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Edward, and it's so exciting to be here once again. So I wanted to talk about club updates for High School North. So our tutoring society has officially begun tutoring students, both WWP and High School North students, starting on October 25th from 6 to 8 p.m. and 3 to 4 p.m. Several days a week. Our National Honor Society is hosting a Thanksgiving food drive. The Mercer County March of Dimes chain, of which many officers and members actually go to High School North, is hosting an art competition where students can submit a piece of art, old or new, for $5 and be subject to win many different grand prizes. Our Red Cross Club is currently planning a hurricane relief fundraiser. Our Model Congress team actually competed in Princeton Model Congress this past Friday and Saturday, in which they participated in over 20 hours of debate, covering bills about excise taxes, decriminalization of marijuana, and other topics as well. And 16 North members and officers actually awarded at this conference. And North actually won an honorable mention for best delegation, which I thought was pretty amazing. Medform and HOSA. So for our North HOSA team, which consists of around 44 individuals, has begun preparing for the Southern Regional HOSA competition. I also wanted to talk about yearbook pictures. So yearbook pictures for virtual students are being taken this week. Pictures for hybrid students have been taken last week. And club pictures are currently being sent to the yearbook club for to be included in the year-end yearbook. Half-day Wednesdays, the first half-day Wednesday was November 11th, 6 days ago. Personally, I thought it was a great experience because it really mitigated my eye strain and it allowed for an opportunity to stay away from the screens. Teacher professional development, it started the week of November 8th. And regarding standardized tests, I just wanted to update you about the PSAT. So high school juniors have finished taking the PSATs on October 14th, I believe. And some SAT recent and upcoming dates include October 3rd, November 7th, and December 5th, which is coming up shortly. And one final thing I wanted to talk about is the college applications. So for early action, many high school seniors who are applying have already submitted their applications. There are several colleges who have extended this deadline to November 15th and other dates as well. But for the most part, a lot of high school seniors are feeling, I guess, stress relieved. So that's pretty nice. So thank you for your time. That's all I wanted to talk about.
Thank you so much for your updates from the high schools. We appreciate it. So tonight we have a number of presentations. We're going to start first with a presentation on the 2021-2022 program of studies. And so for that, I will turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, Dr. Pamela Nathan.
Good evening. Oh, I wasn't sure if I was going to share my screen. Okay. I have the responsibility and pleasure of sharing our 21-22 program of study. Okay, so our new courses for the upcoming school year are student research in social sciences, an honors course, and social justice, race, class, and gender, which will replace our current multicultural studies course. So to give you a little bit more detail, our student research in the social sciences honors is a student research provides an opportunity for our students to research, to truly design and implement research projects under the guidance of a faculty member. Students will be expected to perform literature searches, analyze published research articles, develop relevant and testable questions, consult experts in the field of study, design and carry out research plans, and analyze results. In addition, they may learn and use basic quantitative and qualitative research techniques, conduct ethnographic research, and form partnerships with experts in industry or academia. Students will share their progress with one another and their teacher mentor at periodic seminars and will communicate it with other students who are working on similar projects. A culminating experience will be to create a formal research project summarizing their findings, present their results at a seminar session, communicate their results through oral presentations, and where appropriate, even submit their research in competition. This course is offered to 11th and 12th graders and does have some course criteria. Prerequisites being American Studies 1 or American Studies 1 honors. Our second new course, and again, replacing our multicultural studies, is social justice, race, class, and gender. This aligns well with the equity work that we've been doing in district. This course is designed to introduce students to social justice issues and assist them in discovering their ability to create positive change in their own world. Students will critically analyze various social movements related to race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, and class. And finally, the last change to the program of studies for the upcoming school year is the removal of conversations in Spanish. This course has not been offered in a few years and typically was offered to students who had finished Spanish level 5. Because of our offerings in our world language classes and the other courses that we offer as options, this class has not been utilized, so we are removing it from the program of studies. I appreciate the opportunity to share our brief update on our program of studies for the upcoming school year.
Thank you, Dr. Nathan. Does the board have any questions for Dr. Nathan? Okay, so we'll move on now to the next presentation we have, which is going to be about diversity, equity, and inclusivity.
Michelle, before we do it, I just want to make sure, I thought I saw Louisa.
Yeah,
Oh,
I got to figure out how to wave faster. Yeah, I just had a question. Do we offer other student research classes in other subject areas at this point?
We do have another research class. This one would take it a step further where students would really be able to dive into their passion project. We know that students last year and actually the year before have been asking for a course that really allows them to create these kind of personalized projects.
And just from a process perspective, traditionally we present the program of studies at the November meeting. It's then voted upon at the December board meeting, which I believe is the 15th this year. And then it's then made publicly available on the website, and then it's shared with our students so they can do the scheduling process starting in January. And Michelle, you had said the next topic up is the diversity, equity, inclusivity program. I just need to move Mr. Jones to a panelist. So
I was just going to ask you to do that. Thank you.
invite him to be a panelist.
So as you do that, I will let everyone know that this presentation will be done by our Assistant Superintendent for Pupil Services, Mr. James Earl, our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity Coordinator, Mr. Anthony Jones, and our Director of Human Resources, Charity Camella. So I don't know who's going to begin, but I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Case, and thank you, everyone. Tonight, we're going to share information about the work that Anthony has been engaged in since his arrival as the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity Coordinator. So I won't steal his thunder. He's going to share the information, and then Charity, Ms. Camilla, will share what the work we've done in human resources and the hiring process. We're excited about the work taking place around the district. So Mr. Jones, can you start us off?
Yes, I just want to thank everyone. Welcome. Dr. Aderhold, are you sharing your screen or?
Anthony, yes, I'll share screen now.
Okay.
Sorry, I just need to, just give me a moment and I'll fix that.
Okay.
All right. All right, Mr. Jones, it should be all set for you.
Okay. All right. Let's do this. Okay. All right. So welcome and good evening. My name is Anthony Jones, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity Coordinator for West Windsor-Plainsboro Regional School District. It's a pleasure to meet and speak with everyone tonight virtually. I want to thank Dr. Aderhold and Mr. James Earl for their support and commitment to equity and really setting me up for success over the last 2 months. So I'd like to just touch on the diversity, equity, and inclusivity. As you can see with the slide, these two frames are really what I've been keeping at the forefront of the work that I've been undertaking. So as you can see with the first quote is the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion is a long-term commitment that can only be accomplished successfully with the active participation of all stakeholders and the responsibility to welcome and celebrate every child, regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, country of origin, economic status, sexual identity, gender, and gender identity to fully reach their full potential. So I would keep these really key points in mind as I come to work each and every day. The second piece, which I think is also critically important to diversity, equity, and inclusivity, is to make sure that we involve the community. The community is part of the work. It's not just the school, but it's also, whether that be West Windsor-Plainsboro parent associations, that could be the police departments, that could be parks and recreations, right? So these are people that are part of the community that make up also what diversity, equity, and inclusivity is about. So the big question is, what has the new diversity, equity, and inclusivity coordinator been doing over the last 2 months? Okay. So I titled it Listening, Learning, and Discovering. And the reason why I decided to title it Listening, Learning, and Discovering is that coming into the role, someone that is definitely new to the district, the key part for me was I had to listen. I wanted to listen to parents. I wanted to listen to students. I wanted to listen to board members. I wanted to listen to faculty. And as you can see with the first bullet point, even though COVID-19 has been one of our most severe issues of our day, I think the pandemic has actually helped me in the role in that I've been able to meet more people through the medium of Zoom. So as you can see, I've had meetings with principals, assistant principals, teachers, department supervisors, student advocacy groups, parent support groups, and community members. So it's been a great historical lesson. I think I've learned so much about West Windsor-Plainsboro Regional School District from teachers that have been in the district over 30 years, and even teachers that are coming in, alumni as well. As you can also see, I visited all 10 district schools, elementary, middle schools, and high schools. A key point of actually visiting the 10 district schools, which was critical, is that each school has their own unique culture and norms, right? So it's important that if we're going to do the diversity, equity, and inclusivity work, that we know what each school's culture is, and actually what are some of the things that are happening in the schools. I've also developed an equity audit. The equity audit I delved into a little bit more detailed at the district level with the schools, elementary, middle school, and also high school. It touched upon some of the things that are happening in the schools that West Windsor-Plainsboro Regional School District is doing very well, but it also touched on things that we need to improve on as well. And the purpose and goal of the Listening, Learning, and Discovering is to continue the ongoing collaboration between schools, faculty, staff, and the community to encourage an equity and inclusivity lens. I want to mention, because it is critical, is that the district has been doing work in diversity, equity, and inclusivity. So this is not something that is new, even though my role is new. Dr. Adderhold and Mr. James Earl and the rest of the team have actually been meeting with the community members as well as other stakeholders to address these issues. So a few common themes that have come up over the past 2 months. And I would say that these themes are common across buildings, but mostly this theme was more commonplace at the high school level. Students want to be represented in the materials that they are learning. It's important to note that teachers are also excited about developing their skills to teach more culturally relevant material. A few highlights is that High School South is doing a pilot program, 9th through 11th grade, and they are reading Stamped by Jason Reynolds. And it's the young adult version that Ibram Kendi actually put out a few years ago. Another aspect of the curriculum that has also been revised is that 12th grade students in particular classes are actually reading Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. And also as well, ADVID has developed 2 cohorts for the 9th grade. At the elementary, middle school level, work is being done as well to enhance the library on more diverse reading materials, as well as more pictures around the school to represent our students. Safe and brave spaces for all students and faculty. So with the safe and brave spaces for both students and faculty, one of the key components is that we want to make sure that there's open dialogue between the students as well as the faculty. One of the young ladies that's on the call, Allison, who I met for the first time yesterday, has been part of this conversation, so it's good to see a familiar face. A few examples include the Black Student Union, Shades at High School North, is having dialogue sessions with faculty and staff on I would say a bi-weekly basis, as well as Allison, who's part of, I believe, the People of Color advocacy group at High School South. They actually held a PD session with faculty yesterday, and I'll get into that a little bit more as we continue the presentation. Equity team meetings and data review. So the equity team meetings came in as the diversity, equity, and inclusivity coordinator. And one of the things that I was charged with is making sure that we not only meet on a, I would say a twice a month basis, but also coming up with a few goals in mind that we can come to a shared understanding of what equity and inclusivity is. Also, we are thinking about developing surveys as well to gather information from students. So as we head into 2021, one of the things that the equity team will focus on is how do we capture exactly what students are feeling to make sure that what students are actually feeling is a representative of all students. We don't want to just capture a few students. We want to really capture the whole student body. And that could be from 6th grade through 12th grade. And it would be a great moment to actually see where some of the gaps are. And then lastly is reviewing data and developing action plans to address challenges of equity and inclusion. So as we know, with the data throughout the district, there are areas that we can improve on, and there are a few disparities, in the district, whether that be among race, amongst gender, and these are the things that the equity team is focusing their efforts on. I will say with the equity team, what is a key component as well is that all 10 schools are represented on the equity team meetings. So that could be an assistant principal, that could be a principal, that could be a department supervisor. Dr. Aderhold is also on the equity team meeting, as well as Mr. James Earl. And then we have community building and cultural action. So community building, as we know, is an important aspect of the equity work, which I've mentioned before. So I've met with the African American Parent Support Group. I've also met with the Special Education, Parent Teacher Student Association, and student advocacy groups. I have in the pipeline to meet with more PTA groups, as well as more student groups. I have a meeting, I believe, on Thursday with the Gay Straight Alliance. So these are ongoing meetings to just listen, to learn, and to discover. Another important aspect, which I didn't think I would necessarily speak with, but I think there's a level of energy around equity and inclusivity, is that I've actually had a chance to reconnect with West Windsor-Plainsboro alumni who have actually reached out to myself. They've reached out to Dr. Aderhold and Mr. James Earl, and just speaking to them about their experiences has been also an important aspect of the work. I think when we speak to the alum, the great thing is to hear their experiences, but also to show that the progress that we're actually making. We spoke to one student last week that was just very, very excited that the culturally responsive curriculum is in play, and some of the books that the students are actually are going to read at the high school level. And then lastly, diversity, equity, and inclusivity in West Windsor-Plainsboro schools. And this is just a highlight. There's been a lot of things that have happened in October. There's a lot of things that are upcoming, but these are just a few of the notable events that have happened within the last few weeks. I'll just touch on a few of them. So last week, Wednesday, there was the Black Student Union Shades. They held a panel discussion with students and faculty to discuss how teachers and students can be an ally to African-American students. Very powerful and very impactful dialogue, just to hear the student voices and hear some of their challenges. And the great thing about it was that we actually, as adults, listened, and we want to make sure that these dialogues continue to happen throughout the school year. So this will be one of many, and I encourage whether it be board members or to be able to attend one of these, because this was really, really powerful. Another event that happened on Monday, November 16th, was High School South held a PD session for faculty focused on equity. And another great aspect of it was that students led part of the PD session, right? So this is something that is a collaborative approach that I believe went well. I will follow up with High School South this week to see how it went, but I have a feeling that it went really well. And then on November 17th, the Village held a discussion for faculty on anti-racism and equity, and these sessions are ongoing for faculty and staff. Weekly announcements are happening at Millstone River School to celebrate student cultures as well as experience. And student-led discussions, which I believe Allison has been a part of, and the English Language Arts Department. The English Language Arts Department is actually looking to revise some of their curriculum offerings, and students are playing a big part in that as well. So as you can see, overall, there's a lot of work that I've been doing, but I look at it as a lot of work that the district has been doing. Everyone has their hands in it and is playing a huge part in really pushing this equity and inclusivity work, not something that is just out there, but is actually happening, that people can touch and feel. So with that being said, thank you very much. And I believe I'll turn it over to Charity. I don't know.
So I'm on my slides right next, Dave, for you controlling. Thank you. So I'd love to. I'm Charity Camella. I'm the Director of Human Resources. And I'd love to speak to you about how we have been utilizing greater diversity in our hiring for West Windsor-Plainsboro. You know, I always think of my two favorite words, which, you know, probably why all of us are somehow involved in education or even attending this meeting tonight, and that's aspiration and inspiration. You know, aspiration comes from our hopes and what we want to do and what we aspire to, and inspiration is, you know, we have to somehow see something or to know somebody to get to that place. So for many of us, we can think back on our favorite teacher and or the person that we interacted with a lot in, you know, as we were in our formative years. And many times it's because we could relate to them. They reminded us of ourselves some kind of way. And we thought and looked at them and thought, I someday want to be like this person. I am very much inspired by my colleagues that are on this call. I'm very much inspired by the people I work with and by our teachers. I'm inspired by our students. And so we really have to keep that in mind when we think about the students that are in our charge, as well as the teachers that and the staff members that work in our district, and what ideas and ideals they can bring to us. So taking a look just at the student to staff comparisons in our district, we can take a look at our student demographics, which are pretty current. We have 71% Asian students, 5% Black, 5% Hispanic, and 16% white. When you look at your staff, you'll see a little bit of an inverse, 85% white, followed by 7% Asian, and then Black and Hispanic are 3% each. Now these are the major, there's other, of course, groups that are represented with less than 1%, but out of those main four areas, it seems to be that there is a bit of a flip going on. Could you go to the next slide? Now, if you take a look at the National Center for Education Statistics and you look back at the national stats for education, it's not that much different. Back in 1999, if you look at our teaching force, 84% of our teachers were white, followed by 8% Black, 6% Hispanic, and less than 1% Asian. 18 years later, taking a look, you'll see a little bit of change. And our Caucasian staff dropped a bit, and when our Hispanic rose 3%, Black slightly lower, and Asian a tiny, tiny bit higher. So no matter what, in looking at just these stats alone, if you were to draw a pie chart out of these sets of data, you'd notice that there's one, you know, there's some parts of the data that's very acute. You have a very large percentage of one particular group and then very, very small pieces. And we know with Thanksgiving coming up that too much pie, too much of a big piece is never a good thing. You want to try to have it more equally split apart.
And Charity, this is national data, correct?
This is national. And it's showing the span over 18 years hasn't really changed that much, but our student population has changed quite a bit. So we have been focusing on trying to bring greater diversity to our district and taking a look at our hiring pools when we go to select applications, and we're looking to see where can we find more of our diverse staff. We are very fortunate in this district that we have many, many applicants that would love to work here. We can put up a posting for a teaching position, and we oftentimes have hundreds and hundreds of applicants, many times right from the same colleges just around the corner or from the same places as usual. And we can get quite a number of very, very skilled teachers. And, you know, we're very, very proud of our staff. When we're trying to look for more diverse staff, though, we do have to be more active, and we have to go and try to recruit specifically in different areas or in different ways. We have been participating in virtual job fairs. We have been a part of the CJ Pride Consortium, which is it's a consortium of districts that specifically look for ways for bringing in more diverse staff. And we also analyze and look outward for the best candidates that we can get, but not only in, waiting for the people who come to us, but to go to where the diverse candidates are. And so we've taken a look at our new hires, just looking at the new staff that come into the district, whether they're teachers or support staff or administrators, over just the past 4 years. And you can see some of the span of changes that have happened. Back in 2017, out of our new hires, we had 79% white, 10% Asian, followed by 7% Hispanic and 2% Black. As the years have progressed, though, you can see that there's been a shakeup in how the different groups are spread across. And so what we have been doing as administrators and as hiring agents is to, number one, look for the best skill set that we can find, but also make sure that our pool is varied, that, when we're looking for elementary teachers, that we're looking for male staff as well as female staff, because we know that there's usually a very high percentage of female staff in the elementary, but maybe we want to try to recruit some more men. And it's the same for any other underrepresented area in all of our levels of teaching or administration or in support. And we try to make sure that when we are bringing in our candidates, that we do have a diverse pool of candidates. And then we can really go through in the interview process, which is very standardized, and look at the best. But because we have such variety, we can bring forward a more diverse crop of candidates, and we usually end up with greater diversity in our hires. And the end result of that is that we have so many different voices to the table. We have people from so many different perspectives that can add to the richness of education, of excellence of education in this district. So it's been very wonderful to work strategically and thinking about trying to promote diversity in the district. And I'm very, very proud of the work that we've been doing. And I'm always trying to find ways that we can bring in more inspiration for our students, so that when they see the educators in this district, they can see themselves and they can aspire to be a greater version of who they're meant to be. So that's it in a nutshell for where we are in hiring.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. Mr. Jones and Mrs. Camilla, thank you so much. Does the board have any questions for either of them? I'm looking carefully to see if anybody's raising their hand. Okay, I don't see anything. So thank you so much, Mr. Jones and Mrs. Camilla. And now we'll move on to our final presentation for the night, which is on winter athletics. I'm going to ask Dr. Adderhold to make our athletic director, Kate Dobinson, a participant, right?
Yep. First, I just need to move Anthony back to attendee. And then
thank you.
He's on the move. Thank you, Anthony.
And I believe Mr. Earl will also be speaking.
And bringing Kate in now.
Thank you.
So as we bring Kate onto the panel, and before we turn it over to both Kate and Anthony, and James, I just wanted to again thank Kate and members of the athletic community for taking the time to come together and provide feedback. Kate's going to talk about an interactive process, and I'll make some remarks at the conclusion of Kate's presentation. James, were you kicking off, or right to Kate?
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you again for allowing us to present. Kate's done a phenomenal job of gathering coaches, and Dr. Adderhold and I and Kate working with families, listening to boosters. So you're going to hear a good bit about what's taking place in the area of us collaborating with our stakeholders around the winter sports season and sports in general. So I'll turn it over to Kate. Thank you.
Kate, would you like me to share screen at this point?
That would be great. Thank you. So while we're getting this screen shared, I just want to thank you all for allowing me to present tonight on our winter athletic updates. It has been a very inclusive process as we've been going through and having many discussions with Booster Club members, coaches, as well as students. Dr. Adderhall, if you could just move to the next slide, please. So I wanted to start off with the Executive Order 187 because this spurs a lot of the decision-making process that both the NJSIA and other local athletic communities are looking at. And it's important to remember that the NJSIA governs athletics within high schools, and this executive order really focused on youth sports. But the NJSIA did mirror this with their different recommendations. And what this executive order did, it allowed for youth sports to have indoor sports. It limited the number of individuals at a practice or a competition to 25% of the room in which that takes place, or 25 people, whichever is less. And they did make the accommodation that in the event that you needed more individuals than 25 people, you had that ability to go up to the 25% of the room, as long as they were essential personnel, officials, game workers, players, coaches, training staff of the like. So that's the rundown of the executive order.
And Kate, if I could just add in, just yesterday, late last night, Executive Order 196 was signed and released, and that moves it from 25 to 10. But a very similar limit exists with about necessary personnel for the event. So that same idea that if more than 10 are needed for the event to take place, you can exceed for the event to occur, but it limits essentially no spectators, all that kind of stuff.
So the executive order came out, I believe it was October 13th-ish, and then the next day the NJSIA came out with their guidelines. And this mirrors Executive Order 187. They did give us a practice date to start on December 3rd. WWP is currently looking at December 7th, and the reason I'm looking at December 7th is to allow 10 days between Thanksgiving Day and the start date. So it provides a little bit of a buffer to make sure that all of our staff and students are safe when and if we can begin our practices. Competition would start on December 21st. It is a limited schedule, very similar to what was done in the fall. It's a 15-game schedule with a limit of 2 games per week. And there are 2 weeks where you were allowed 3 games. And that's just to allow everyone to get their competition in. It's limited to 2 teams. So typically wrestling will have tries or quads, as well as winter track will have invitational competition, and they are limiting it to just 2 teams. You have 1 scrimmage and no out-of-state competition is allowed. And that really mirrors what came out last week with the governor's announcement, as well as prohibiting interstate competition. The NJSIA does have their transfer period, November 1, which has already passed. Any student who transfers after this date would be required to sit, even if there is a bona fide address change. So anybody who was looking to transfer needed to transfer prior to that November 1st date. And the transfer sit would be 30 days or half of the maximum of games, which with a 15-game season would be 7 games. Please move. Timeline. So this is a big week in athletics. We have been waiting patiently for the NJSIA to come out and make their recommendations. Based off of communication that we received at the end of October, it was indicated to us that the week of November 16th, both the Medical Advisory Task Force as well as the Sport Advisory Task Force will be coming out with those recommendations. On November 19th, I will have the opportunity to sit in on the leagues and conferences meeting, which will have more an in-depth analysis of those guidelines. And then on November 20th, Friday, we will be having a CVC meeting, Colonial Valley Conference meeting, to go over any changes that needs to be done within our schedule. It's important to note that we do have schedules, competition schedules in place. They have not been released yet because I want to make sure that we have everything set and there's no other changes based upon the CVC schools. And as well as WWP has made indication that we will not be making a decision until later on in the month if we will be moving forward. We go to the next slide. We opened up high school registration on October 16th and it closed on November 8th. Our registration was about 78% of what it would be in a traditional year, which is very positive. High School North had 324 students across 9 sports, and High School South had 362 students registered across 9 sports. I have been accepting some late registrations and working with families on getting physicals in and the nursing department to ensure that when we are given the go-ahead, students will be ready to participate. We have not opened up middle school registration. We are currently looking at what we will need to be doing to have high school sports move forward. As I said in the beginning, we've had many discussions regarding athletics. I've had several coaches meetings starting on October 19th, the 20th. I met with both high schools, and then we did combined meetings with the head coaches on the 29th, the 30th, and then we had a meeting on November 4th with Mr. Earl. Dr. Adderhold, Mr. Earl, Mr. Leppel, Dr. Dauber, and then some of the Board of Ed representatives were able to attend parent meetings with Booster Club members on October 22nd, October 28th, and November 2nd. Those were very positive meetings. We were able to look at the different challenges that we might be facing with athletics, but also be able to hear how important it was to our families and students. On October 27th, we met with the district doctor as well as medical personnel, the athletic trainers, the principals, and Dr. McDonald to look at the different medical needs that we would need to look at, making sure that we have all the requirements met. And then lastly, on November 2nd and November 3rd, I was able to meet with student representatives to discuss concerns with them and how we would need to move forward in a community effort and have everybody on the same page. Some of the health and safety protocols that would be required, temperature screening at the start of practices. Each team has a touch-free thermometer that we have purchased and we have received. Daily health screening form. This would be similar to the health screening forms that students have to submit in order to attend school. Even if a student submits a health screening form in the beginning of the day, they would still need to complete another one towards the end of the day for practices to make sure that we have everybody accounted for and that everyone is safe for practice. Hand sanitizers, we've purchased hand sanitizers as well as refills, and each practice location will have one. The students will be required to be using them in between drills and water breaks. Each student will provide their own water. Practices may be based upon event or gender, and this is really thinking about indoor track, swimming, and fencing, where we have a boys and a girls team, and looking at how we can pod the students. Equipment would be wiped down at the start and the end of practices. Limited locker room use, so really looking at you know, where locker room would be essential, swimming, diving, wrestling, to ensure hygiene as the students are leaving home or to go home. Personal hygiene protocols for athletes, you know, making sure that their items are going home every day, they're washing their uniforms, their pennies every day, and making sure that they're taking that extra step. And then lastly, masks would be worn by all athletic staff. And then students would be asked to wear them during teaching moments. So if they're walking through a play or a drill before they get into that competition or the full-on play within the practice periods. Health and safety for competition. We have an agreement with the Colonial Valley Conference that we will only be playing within our conference. And that is to ensure a pod type group to ensure the safety of all the schools within Mercer County as well as Allentown. We will be identifying local competition groups for fencing and diving. Fencing, we are in the Skylands Conference, and I just want to verify that, you know, those individual schools within those conference would be staying with those individual schools and keeping that potting like we have with basketball, wrestling, swimming, ice hockey, and track. There is a possibility of travel roster limits in accordance with the CVC guidelines. This is something that the CVC schools did in the fall. Daily screening forms and temperature checks required prior to departure, and those forms would have to be shown to the athletic director or athletic trainer at the opposing school. And currently, there are no spectators permitted. However, we are exploring the option of streaming the competition so that our family and our students can still participate and see the events and watch their students play. We did come across some challenges with winter, and it's important to note that while there are challenges, these do not signal that a return to play is not feasible. It's just looking in different ways and being creative with our thought process. Transportation is one of the challenges. WWP follows CDC guidelines and currently permits 11 students and a coach on a bus. So we would need to look at adding additional busing or looking at the roster limits. And then there's no busing to and from practice. Practice spaces, we have explored utilizing other buildings within the district other than our high schools. Spectators, currently the NJSIA are not permitting spectators, but we can stream. And then there's sport specific challenges. When you think about wrestling, there's close physical contact. And then winter track competitions, unable to have invitational meets. So how do we kind of move past those things? And these are also challenges that not only WWP is facing, but other schools within the CVC. You know, there are schools in the CVC that are also facing the challenging of pool space. We are very lucky to have a pool at High School North and High School South, but how will we adjust with our competition not being able to provide pool space? And then lastly, there should be one more slide. Yep. Athlete accountability and responsible behavior. So just as we've been talking about within keeping our schools open, it's important that our athletes and our families follow the recommended CDC guidelines, limit social interactions with groups of individuals. So really kind of keeping your pod or your circle small. Consider travel restrictions and plans for holidays and winter breaks. So really thinking about the need to quarantine after travel, and then utilizing the masks, wearing them properly, good personal hygiene, washing hands, all of those different CDC recommendations that we see on a day-to-day basis. So I will now open it up for questions from the board.
Hi. I was at Mercer County Park one day exercising, and while I was there, there were teams from 2 high schools that I presume were there for a meet or a competition, cross country or something, because they each had, I don't know, maybe 8 runners and 2 coaches. And what I noticed that was a little bit disturbing was that the coaches were masked, but the students were not. And the students were not running yet. I mean, I could understand maybe during the race they're not masked, but they were hanging out under a tree, putting their shoes on, you know, just that kind of stuff. They did not appear to have masks in their possession. And it seemed to me that this was the norm because the coaches were watching it, and that appeared to be the way that they were running that. So I guess my question is there a mechanism that you're imagining for some sort of spot checking and making sure that the coaches and the students are actually adhering to the guidelines, that if we do this?
And I know exactly, you know, I'm the CVC cross-country liaison. So, that was brought to my attention, and we did address that kind of early on, and hopefully encouraged all of the coaches to make sure that they were encouraging and demonstrating and positive behavior, but also relaying back to their athletes the need to wear masks. The way I vision it is our students are very hopeful of having athletics happen. And I think that they will do what will need to be done in order to have athletics happen and also sustain athletics to occur. It's going to come down to the coaches and to the players to really encourage the wearing of masks to and from practice. That is definitely a huge part of the athletic plan that I have developed, and making sure that they're encouraging and really getting that message home to our students. And then if it's not occurring the way it should be doing, with masks to and from practice and during those downtime at practice, having those conversations with the players and with the coaches to ensure that it does happen. But I know that was a struggle that we saw with cross country, and we definitely did address at both the athletic, the official level, as well as the coaching levels. So it comes down to communication.
Any other questions from members of the board? I'll just maybe wrap it up with just saying that I want to say thank you to both Kate and James for their work and leadership through this discussion. A thank you to the booster clubs, one for their advocacy, two for reaching out and being willing to sit down at the table, and the representatives that came and had the meetings with members of the administration and members of the board. Greatly appreciated the feedback and the concerns and the opportunities that they shared. I know that our coaches have been steadfast advocates for our students, student athletes throughout, and have been working with Kate to provide feedback from numerous drafts of sport-specific guidelines, guidance that the district has put together, and to our student athletes for their commitment, their willingness, their interest. And we know that this is so much more than about competition. It's also not about opportunity for connection. What I do know is no matter what happens with the season, we'll continue to support that connection between our coaches and our athletes throughout the winter season, much like we attempted to do through the fall season. There is no decision that's going to be announced tonight. And so I know there's some members of the sports community on tonight. We said tonight was going to be an update, sort of a status update of what's going on out there. It's still there. We're not announcing any grand pronouncements tonight. We are very interested to see what the NJSIA does. We are expecting some guidance to come out this week. We're hoping that actually does happen, whether it's later Thursday or whether it's on Friday. We know the Connecticut Interscholastic Athletic Conference just postponed into mid-January. We're not sure if the NJSIA is going to do a full go, if they're going to do a partial go, and maybe move some sports seasons around. So everything right now we're looking at is potentially on the table. And obviously the health and safety of our school community is going to govern this decision. One of the things that West Windsor-Plainsboro has been able to do that other districts haven't been able to do, quite frankly, is stay open. As we're in day 49, tomorrow being day 50, some of our neighboring communities have yet to open their high schools, but they proceed with athletics. And I think personally that is absolutely the absolute backwards move. Our primary responsibility is to open our facilities, and by no means am I diminishing the value of athletics, but our primary responsibility is the academics. And so we are going to govern and guard the health and safety of our school community and the academic environment of our school community at the forefront. And then we will do everything steadfast to try to make sure and to see if we can do anything with respect to athletics within the winter. But we will not let athletics compromise the academics, as it's happened in so many other communities. So we understand the value, we understand the impact, and we are proceeding earnestly in trying to find a pathway. And quite frankly, the documentation that the NJSIA comes out is going to play a large role in us figuring out if we believe their guidelines are is something that we can implement. And one of the reasons we moved our decision date to the week of the 30th was we just don't know what they're going to put out. And there's that saying, 30 seconds is a long time in a basketball game. Well, 10 days is a long time in making a decision right now in a COVID environment. On Friday, I had 29 more staff members present than I do today, based on quarantining and COVID. So we are going to take every second that we can to make an informed decision to make sure that we're promoting the health and safety of our school community. That is our student athletes and their families, our coaches and their families, and our teachers and our students that are attending on a daily basis. So my thanks to all involved. I know how hard this is. We hope that we are able to find a pathway, but I will not hesitate to make a difficult decision if I don't believe that pathway is possible. Again, my thanks to all involved. And that is the conclusion of 3 presentations. And I believe at this point, Ms. Keisha, I believe it's the first opportunity for public comment, if I'm not mistaken.
It is. And so I will let everyone know the rules. The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern from members of our community who submitted written comments to the board secretary prior to the submission deadline for this meeting, and from those who have signed up on the form to comment via video and/or audio that was open and available on the district website up until the start of this first opportunity for public comment. Any written comments that were submitted prior to the deadline for this meeting will be read aloud by the board attorney for 3 minutes in accordance with board policy 0167. Members of the public who did not submit written comments and who have signed up will be offered the opportunity to make their comments via video and/or audio. Members of the public will not be permitted to submit both written comments and make additional comments via video and/or audio. Each comment should be directed to the presiding officer, not individual members of the board, and must be made in accordance with the procedures and 3-minute time limit set forth in board policy 0167. If the comment extends beyond 3 minutes, speakers will be asked to conclude their comments and may be muted by the moderator. Once an individual has finished their comment or their 3 minutes has expired, their audio and video will be turned off by the moderator. This public comment period shall be limited to 60 minutes. So we'll begin with the public comments that are going to be made via video or audio first.
Ms. Case, there are 2 members of the community that I see have signed up. What I will do is I will send an invite to the first member, Mr. Bidwa, to become a panelist. He has to accept that invitation. He'll appear on the screen. He'll have 3 minutes, and then I'll move him back to attendee.
Thank you.
He might not know that he's muted.
He has no video on. He's been promoted. He's actually a panelist right now, but he has no video and no audio. So.
Mr. Bidwai, are you there?
Yes. Can you see me?
No.
We can hear you, but we cannot see you.
Well, I don't know how to turn on my video. It's on usually.
Well, you can just do the audio then. That's fine if you want.
Well, but I had some picture here and something, so I wanted to share a screen. Is there a way I can do that?
I don't know if that's possible. Is it?
Mr. Bidwa, I'm going to ask you to start your video with a prompt. See if that helps you.
How do I? Oh, start my video. Okay, there it works. Can you?
Yes, we
can see you and hear you.
But how do I share the screen?
You cannot share your screen.
Oh, so you're back to square one. Okay. Well, I'm going to read what is written here by me. And obviously the pictures can't be shown anyway. Madam President, can the WWP superintendent please put money where his mouth is? He stated at the outset today that the virtual program is fast approaching an asymptote by giving the WWP, but given the WWP stance, virtual windows grow exponentially without worries about what is visible in each of them. He just mentioned a limit to virtual classroom in terms of those Zoom pigeonholes. Those are like peg holes, and then I had a picture of pigeonholes and peg holes on an 11.6-inch diagonal Chromebooks. A better use of money so that no child is left behind is to have bigger, better Chromebooks with 15.6 inches diagonals. In the alternative, while everyone differs such a distinction by choice, children must be able to use their available at home 15.6 inches various OS operating system machines. 11.6 inches Chromebooks are so ancient that they belong to a museum, not as a mainstream education delivery device. And then there are a couple of pictures there. And then finally, there was an article in NJ.com, the state of the hybrid at the WWP, a gym class of 1, an auditorium full of students, why 1,400 students dropped out of hybrid learning. And that I'm sure I can email this to the board and then they can probably attach it to the file. That's all I had to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. There is
One other.
Ms. Edwards. Excuse me, Ms. Edwards. I'll move her to panelist now.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hello. I'll make this very quick. As the president of the African American Parent Support Group, I'm happy to see and be a part of the district's push towards diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice. We have a lot of work to do and a lot of uncomfortable conversations to be had, but I am hopeful that we are moving in the right direction. Special shout out to all the PTA presidents and SEPSA. There was a hard working core group that put these WWP shirts together. And we are WWP strong if we stand together and stand united. So thank you to all the PTA presidents. Thank you to SEPSA. Thank you to AAPSG. Thank you to the district for purchasing. Thank you for all that submitted videos. My son and I submitted a video and we had a good time. So as much as we have in this time that divides us, let's work as hard as we can to work together to be united and be WWP strong. Everyone have a great night and stay safe.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are 2 written submitted comments. So I'll share screen. Mark, if that works for you.
Thank Mark in advance. Thank you.
All right. Okay. The first written comment that we have is from Maya Kamath, 19208 Warbler Way, West Windsor. The comment is, I wanted to take a moment to thank all of the staff from our schools and administration, the board members, our WWP students and families, and local community members for participating in the hashtag WWP Strong Spirit Day and making this unity movement a success. It was heartwarming to see everyone share their pictures in solidarity. Special thanks to the WWPEA, our school TPAs, SEPSA, and AAPSG for giving their support to the project. Stronger together, even when apart, we are hashtag WWP Strong. The second comment is from Kristen Reeder, and there's an email address to West Windsor. Nothing about this school year is normal except for how students are being assessed. Maybe it is time for the administration to think outside the box and alleviate the effects that the COVID-19 pandemic is having on students by offering a flexible grading policy. Not the any student who has actively engaged in class activities, responded to teacher feedback, and provided evidence of learning will earn an A policy adopted in the spring, but one that provides for the possibility of taking a non-graduation required class pass-fail or credit, no credit, and not have it appear on an external transcript. And Madam President, those are the 2 written comments.
Thank you. Dr. Adol, do you have anything to say at this time?
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. So that brings us now to our committee reports. We'll begin with administration and facilities, and for that, I will turn it over to Tony Flores.
Hey, thank you. The committee met a week ago, and we began with a update on hybrid and virtual learning. Dr. Adderhold and Mr. Earl provided updates of the way things are going, and I think Dr. Adderhold gave a very good presentation at the start of the meeting, so I'm not going to go through it, other than just to say that I wanted to give a personal thanks to the teachers and staff that are really doing very well in a difficult situation, and they continue to amaze us. We discussed policies on your agenda. You're going to see for the first reading, policies and regulations for domestic violence, health and physical education, administration of medication, supervision of construction, the school day, and reporting potentially missing or abused children. And for a second reading, gifted and talented students. The committee reviewed them and supports the passage both for the first and second reading. If anyone has comments on the first reading ones, please get it to the committee. We'll be discussing them again at our next meeting. Mr. Jones shared with us an example of one of the school crisis manuals and included components. These manuals all have similar components with procedures related to each building and the age of the students. All 10 buildings have updated crisis manuals that include COVID-related procedures and safety guidelines. The committee then reviewed the Safety and Security Plan Statement of Assurance and recommends approval at tonight's meeting. Then we discussed the Living Yes proposal, which supports student climate and culture teams. The speaker will facilitate a climate and culture summit focused on resiliency and connection during COVID. Administrative staff will also be engaged in training and professional development. The committee recommends, again, approval of this proposal at tonight's meeting. Then we discussed the proposed Kane Nurse Partnership. And this is designed to support nursing candidates who are completing clinical internships. The committee again recommends approval for tonight's meeting. We looked at 2 drafts of the 2022-2023 school year. We provided some feedback, and the district will be sharing the calendar with other stakeholders for input. And again, we'll be reviewing them again at our next meeting. We discussed the update on athletics. Ms. Dobinson did a great job, and I'm not going to repeat what we discussed, but the winter athletic registrations have closed, with about 75% of the athletes who have registered last year submitted registrations this year. The special education review consultant is in the process of virtually observing classrooms. Observations were scheduled to be completed by the end of December. Then we discussed the referendums. I'll go through the updates so Louisa won't have to. Fire alarm project is completed Millstone River. and OSI was on site last week to address punch list items. The HVAC upgrades at High School North and Millstone River are moving along nicely with the installation of hot water pipes at North and the shutdown of the chiller at Millstone River to prepare for pump replacements and piping work. Toilet renovations are complete and waiting to address punch list items at Wyckoff and Dutch Neck. The brickwork is complete at Grover and the contractor is pulling branch wiring. Tricon continues installing stormwater piping at Community around the gym area and has installed the adjacent dry well. Work continues at High School South with concrete footings being poured to prepare for the underground plumbing. Shop drawing submissions continue and coordination between the contractors is moving along well. Finally, we discussed the equity update committee. On Wednesday, there was the Black Student Union held a panel discussion with students and faculty. Yesterday, High School South is had professional development session for faculty focused on equity. And today, Village was hosting a discussions for faculty on anti-racism and equity. The equity teams are meeting every 2 weeks. Next meeting is scheduled for December 8th. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next report comes from the Curriculum Committee. So for that, I'll turn it over to Dana Krug.
Hello, good evening. The Curriculum Committee also met on November 10th. Dr. Nathan and Dr. McDonald shared the revisions to the high school program of study for the 21-22 school year. A presentation will be given to the full board at the next board meeting, which we saw earlier tonight. The Curriculum Committee also recommends approval of 2 professional development opportunities: virtual Fishbird training, which is a program of interactive workshops and coaching where participants align to a shared purpose and continue to develop the skills and insights to lead. This is for district staff members at a cost not to exceed $4,000. And another opportunity is the Colby Index A assessments for all participants at a cost not to exceed $1,500. The Curriculum Committee also recommends approval of the additional community education spring break 2020-21 virtual programs for students grades 1 to 8. Please take a look at the district website to see all of the winter and spring programs being run online through community education. Our next meeting is Tuesday, December 8th, and that will also be virtual.
Thank you. Are there any questions about the curriculum minutes? Okay, now we'll turn it over for the report coming out of the Finance Committee, and that goes to Louisa Ho.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button there for a second. Okay, the Finance Committee also met on November 10th. We started with an update on health insurance. Staff shared that administration and Brown & Brown are working on setting up the structure for banking and information sharing for the self-insurance approach for healthcare that we discussed previously. Brown & Brown is working on suitor rates and reviewing plan documents line by line. Staff shared that the auditor will share the results of the 2019-20 audit with the Finance Committee at the December meeting and then with the full board at the December regular public meeting. Next, the committee reviewed agenda items for tonight's board meeting. The committee reviewed the financial reports for the month. There are 2 change orders on the agenda. The change order in the Town Center expansion project was approved in the field previously and involved replacing stairs. The other change order is for a set of changes for the bus parking area at High School North, which resulted in a credit to the district. Also, there is a motion on the agenda to authorize the architect to assist the district in complying with the requirements of the Securing Our Children's Future Bond Act grant. The architect will design and make the required submittals to the Office of School Facilities on the district's behalf. Also on the agenda are the disposal of a few items that are past their useful life and the cancellation of a bus route that is no longer needed. Staff provided an update on construction projects. Tony wonderfully covered that already. I would just add that I think there was one item on Wyckoff. Due to the topography of the Wyckoff site with respect to the Americans with Disabilities Act, a discussion was led. The staff discussed possibly moving the main entrance to the opposite side of the building which would require new travel patterns around the site. Next, the discussion moved to summer projects. Staff shared that work continues on the high school north salt storage shed. Work on the village salt storage shed has been held up as we await permit approval from West Windsor Township. Staff then provided an update on the energy savings improvement program work. At High School South, fan coils are being hung in the locker rooms along with network integration of controls in the building. At Dutch Neck, the installation of HVAC controls continues. At Community, there was a crane lift this week for the rooftop HVAC units. Also, HVAC controls are being installed on other units in the 700-800 wing. At Millstone River, emergency lighting meetings were held to include more areas of the building on the backup lighting system tied to the generators. LED lighting retrofit is substantially complete in Village, Town Center, and Wyckoff Elementary Schools, and they are beginning to mobilize at Dutch Neck. Network integration and commissioning of the HVAC systems at Village and Town Center Elementary Schools is happening this week and next. High efficiency transformers have been installed at High School South, Village, High School North, Grover, and Millstone, and this work is beginning at Community Middle School this week. Bipolar ionization unit installation is complete in Town Center, Hawk, Village, Community, Dutch Neck, and High School South, except for locker rooms where work is being completed on the HVAC system. Work at North has been halted due to referendum work on unit ventilators, but all classrooms have standalone HEPA filter systems currently. Solar array racking is complete at Millstone River, Dutch Neck, and Village, and awaiting final steps to start operation of the systems. Installation of solar panels has started at Grover. Next, the committee briefly discussed preparation for the 2021 budget. Staff shared that due to COVID-19, there is a concern that the state might propose flat funding for the next year or the subsequent year. There is legislation introduced in the Senate to allow for a 4% fund balance for school districts, which is currently set at 2% of the prior year's general fund expended. This further indicates the possibility of future aid cuts. The budget calendar was provided to the committee and may be slightly different this year due to the pandemic. Staff provided an update on school operations that has largely been updated by the superintendent today. The district has started providing daily in-person instruction to more special education students in grades 4 to 12. To do this, the district has safely accommodated approximately 200 additional students on buses, and staff, the superintendent commended everyone involved in making this happen, and that we have been getting positive feedback on this change. There was no other new business discussed, and the committee will next meet on Tuesday, December 8th.
Thanks. Are there any questions about the Finance Committee's report? Okay, so now we'll move forward with our agenda, part where we vote. We begin with, can I please get a motion on administration items 1 to 12, plus we have 2 addendum. One is the residency matter, and the other one is the special services agreement. So can I get a motion on items 1 to 12 plus those 2 addendum? Tony and Robin. Are there any questions or comments on the administration items? Thank you, Chris.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Chang.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Flores.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. McCune.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Ms. Ovich.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes.
And Ms. Case.
Yes. Can I please get a motion on the curriculum and instruction items 1 and 2? Dana and Graylin. Are there any questions or comments on the curriculum items? Thank you, Chris.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Flores.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. McCune.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Ms. Ovich.
Yes.
Mr. Chang.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes.
And Ms. Case.
Yes. Can I please get a motion on the finance items 1 through 8 plus 2 addendum? One is the additional bill list and the other one is the school security grant assurances. 1 to 8 plus those 2 addendum, Louisa and Isaac. Are there any questions or comments on the finance items? Thanks, Chris.
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. McCune.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Ms. Zovich,
Yes.
Mr. Chang,
Yes.
Mr. Flores,
Yes.
Ms. Juliana,
Yes.
and Ms. Case.
Yes.
Okay.
Could I please get a motion on the personnel item 1 plus the personnel addendum and then the other addendum, which is the sidebar agreement with the WWPEA? Martin and Rachel, are there any questions on the personnel items? Thanks, Chris.
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. McCune,
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield,
Yes.
Ms. Zovich,
Yes.
Mr. Chang,
Yes.
Mr. Flores,
Yes.
Ms. Ho,
Yes.
Ms. Juliana,
Yes.
and Ms. Case.
Yes. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge one retirement that we just voted on. Rachel Cianci, a learning disabilities teacher consultant, is retiring after 34 and a half years with the district. I want to thank her for all her hard work and appreciate all she did for the students in WWP and wish her well. Could I please get
Ms. Case, I apologize. I just want to also acknowledge in a virtual audience tonight, we also have a new assistant principal that was just brought in this evening. So if we were in the board office, we would have just recognized them in the room. So humor me as I recognize someone in a virtual space that you can't see. But Emily Krevling just was appointed as new assistant principal at High School South. Emily will follow in the footsteps of Dr. Carla Royster, who will be retiring at the end of December. So all our best to Dr. Royster. Emily joins us from currently is the instructional coach at the Urban Assembly in New York City. Prior to that, she was an assistant principal in Freehold Township in New Jersey. Prior to that, she was an assistant principal in New York City. So she had some family move there in between. So she's coming back to Jersey, and we're proud to welcome her to High School South as assistant principal. So welcome, Emily.
And on behalf of the board, I will welcome Ms. Kreveling as well. Good luck. Thank you. Can I please get a motion to approve the minutes from our meeting on October 27th? Isaac and Louisa. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any abstentions? Are there any liaison reports? Is there any new business? That brings us to the second opportunity for public comment. The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern from members of our community who submitted written comments to the board secretary prior to the submission deadline for this meeting, and from those who have signed up on the form to comment via video and/or audio that was open and available on the district website up until the start of this second opportunity for public comment. Any written comments that were submitted prior to the deadline for this meeting will be read aloud by the board attorney for 3 minutes in accordance with board policy 0167. Members of the public who did not submit written comments and who have signed up will be offered the opportunity to make their comments via video and/or audio. Members of the public will not be permitted to submit both written comments and make additional comments via video and/or audio. Each comment should be directed to the presiding officer, not individual members of the board, and must be made in accordance with the procedures and 3-minute time limit set forth in board policy 0167. If the comment extends beyond 3 minutes, speakers will be asked to conclude their comments and may be muted by the moderator. Once an individual has finished their comment or their 3 minutes has expired, their audio and video will be turned off by the moderator. This public comment period shall be limited to 15 minutes. We'll begin.
We don't have any written comments, so it's only speaking.
Okay. And do we have any video or audio comments?
We have one request for speaking, Ms. Libby Barak, but I looked in the attendee list and I do not see her listed. There's one phone number and I cross-checked that against Genesis and it does not match that name or that family. So it does not appear that she's still present.
Okay, so then I guess we have no public comment at this time. So we'll close that and I need a motion to adjourn. Rachel and Robin, all those in favor say aye.
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 Bye. You adjourn. Stay safe, everybody. Have a great Thanksgiving. Be careful, and we'll see you soon. WWP strong.